Howdy, folks. This is Tom with Linux for the Windows guy. This is going to be the second part in our series of building domain controllers and a file server to support Windows clients. Um, again, we try to make the videos here uh, step-by-step easy follow-throughs for people who are familiar and probably really good Windows admins in their environment but have little to no experience on Linux but would like to learn how to put in Linux servers on the back end to support the Windows desktops, which users seem to really want for some reason. um, so what we're going to do is kind of cover. We've built in our previous video the actual first Active Directory domain controller, which I have up in the screen here. We're going to go ahead and connect a workstation to this domain controller. And this is just going to be a pretty standard Windows 7 workstation with pretty much nothing extra installed. I don't even have an antivirus client on this. Um, and we're just going to join it to the domain, and we're also going to install the Windows Server administration tools, or the remote server administration tools, I should say, so that we can use things like Active Directory users and computers, the DNS thing, all that stuff to administer our domain that's running on the Linux server. Um, so the first thing I'll do here is I opened up Internet Explorer. I'm going to go ahead and do www.google.com. Get rid of all this MSN crap that's on there, right? And we're just going to type Windows remote. Actually, we can just type RSAT, which is the abbreviation. And we see a link here, remote server administration tools, download. We'll click on that. It's Microsoft, probably should be a good link. And we're going to want some English. And then we see there's an x86 or 64. I believe I installed 64-bit. Let me just double check, make sure I did install from the right ISO. And yep, we're 64-bit. So we'll close that, and we're going to go ahead and say 64-bit. And next. And we'll allow the pop-up. Okay. And then we're going to save this. And we're going to close that stupid thing. And then we'll view our downloads. Okay, we're getting 6 megs a second, so it shouldn't take too long for those to download. Then what we want to do is go ahead and set a few things on this computer to make sure we have it right. Now this is bridged, so it would have got the DNS from my server. I'm just going to pop open this real quick and make sure I cloned this machine off another one to make sure I did bridge it. Let's go here, settings, and let me see that this virtual machine is bridged, maybe, if the settings are going to open. I've got video rendering in the background as we speak, so my processor is a bit on the overloaded side. Oh no, we have it set for NAT, so we'll have to reboot and fix that. But that's okay. So what we're going to go ahead and do, though, is we'll go ahead and set our IP while we're in here. I'm going to wait, make sure this is downloaded first. And yes, that download has completed. We're going to open that folder, and we'll just take this and we'll copy that and just put that out on our desktop. Okay, so I can go ahead and install that while I'm in here, and we want to reboot after we install that anyway, so I might as well do that now before I do a reboot. And it's basically going to come up. It's probably going to give me a funky little "Are you sure you want to allow this to happen?" screen. I want to show you. Let me pause this while we're waiting on it to come up. Like I said, my processor is a bit tasked at the moment. Okay, so it comes up here. Do you want to install the Windows software update? And this does come across as an update, but it doesn't ever show up in Windows updates or anything. But basically, you're just going to let this run. It's going to take a few minutes to install, and then I'll pause this and come back when it's ready for the next step. Oh, Oh, okay. We have to accept the license agreement as well. And it basically says if you install this, Microsoft's going to own you. We're stingy. We don't believe in any type of freedom with software and source code. And we have a right to eat your children, that kind of stuff. Just accept that. Nobody actually reads that, right? And we'll install this, and then I will be right back. Okay, so we see here that the installation is complete. We're going to close. I'm just going to go ahead and shut this down now, and then I will reset the the adapter to bridge mode. And I'll go ahead and show you how I do that in the hypervisor, although it's kind of outside the scope of the video. Um, so I'll go ahead and bring up my, let me get this other stuff out of my way here. Go ahead and bring up a virtual box. Okay, and what we'll do is go ahead and right click this guy and hit settings, and we'll go to network, and we'll change the enable the attached to, and we'll say it's a bridged adapter, and it'll bridge it into the rest of my network. And I'll double check my Active Directory, make sure it is also bridged. Okay, so those will be able to see each other now. So I'll go ahead and power this back on and let it boot up with its bloated Windows code, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so we're booted back up. We've installed a remote Windows Server remote server administration toolkit, and we are on the network. Now, what I'm going to do first here is just go ahead and join this computer for the domain. So if you're a Windows administrator, this process is going to seem pretty straightforward to you. The first thing I'm going to do, since I don't have a Windows DHCP server handing out the correct domain information, is go ahead and go to my network and sharing center and control panel. I'm going to hit change adapter settings, and I'm going to hit right click on my single on only network connection, and I'm going to hit properties, and I'm going to go to TCP/IP version 4. I'm going to hit properties, and if I only had like $1 for every time I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and specify. And, I don't know that I have to specify my DNS server to do this. I just need to come here and put in Santa, or never mind, I said that. Frugal.local. That's the work. I was about to say the work domain at work, because if I had a penny for every time I've done this, I'd be a millionaire. Okay, so because we do all static IPs at work. So we'll go ahead and say OK, and we'll say close. And so now we've got DNS suffix in there and specified, and so I'm going to go ahead and now I'm ready to set up the domain. And for this, we're going to right click on our computer there in the start menu and hit properties, and we're going to come here where it tells us our computer name and all that stuff and hit change settings. And I like to use the wizard here, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So it's part of a business network. It's got a domain, blah 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 blah. So now it wants a domain login and password, which is going to be administrator, and then the password I set it to when I set up the server, and then the domain name, which is frugal.local. Click next. Okay, and now we're going to just leave it the same name, and we're going to call it domain name again. It wants us to put it in here again, frugal.local. Okay, we're going to say next. Oh no. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I did have to specify a DNS server. Let me go back here and fix that. And I kind of like to leave my screw ups in the video sometimes. So because you may very well do the same thing and have the same problem. And you can see what happened. So really, I need to specify the DNS server not to be my real one, which is what the router handed me. I need to specify it to be the Samba server. So we're going to say this is 10.100.110.2 or .150, which I think is what I made my server. I don't know if I can ping it. Yeah, so it's 150. We want our DNS to resolve through there so you can find all those domain records and stuff that we tested for in the first video. So we're good there. So now we'll go back in here and hit change settings again. I'm going to use the wizard. I'm going to say next, and next, next. And then we're going to go, this is going to be administrator. If I put my fingers on the right keys and my password. Okay, and frugal.local. We're going to say next. Then we're going to type frugal.local again. Okay, and we're going to say next. There we go. Now we didn't get an error. So now it wants us to put in a permit account again with permission to join, which is going to be administrator again. So we'll put in the same information again. And then this will be the password. And then this will be the domain name. And we'll say OK. And now it's going to go create that computer account in the domain. And now it says, do you want to add the following user? Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and go with the local administrator user. Sometimes I do type the group domain users in here so that any user of the computer can be a local administrator. I'm just going to leave it administrator, and they're just going to be in the group of administrators, and we'll say finish. We'll say OK, and now we have to restart. So we'll say restart now, and we'll let Windows restart itself, and then I'll be back when it's done. Okay, so the Windows 7 machine has rebooted, and we see now that it comes to the good old press Control Alt Delete, which what we have to do in a VM is do a machine insert Control Alt Delete. Okay, and now we're ready to log in. This is our domain name, administrator. So we're going to log in as the domain administrator. We'll put the domain administrator password, and that's the password we set when we set up the domain on the server in the first video. And we'll go ahead and click this button here, and it'll log us into the domain. And this will create kind of like a new profile, like that thing we downloaded before won't be on the desktop because it's on that local administrator's user's desktop. And now we have a new desktop because we're in the domain. For those of you that are Windows administrators of Windows PCs and a Windows domain today, you'll understand that. It's something that you have to deal with all the time. I personally think the way Linux handles users and profiles and in the home directories is much simpler than the way Windows handles it. But hey, we gotta support those Windows users, right? So it's gonna take it a minute here, because it's gonna prepare the desktop and come up with all my new settings, and it's setting up my pictures folder and all that happy-go-lucky stuff, and it's creating my registry as a new user. And so now if you were to browse and you go to computer and you go to C:, and you go to users, you'll see here was the original local user that I was in before. That's what I called my account, was user. And even if I go into there and go to desktop, I'll see there's the file I downloaded before, right? Okay, and then I'll see administrator. Now the weird thing is if you already had one called administrator and then you joined the domain, you would see administrator dot in the domain name. But since there wasn't one, it just calls it administrator, which can make things a bit confusing at times as to which profile you're really looking at. Excuse me. Oh, man. So now we've got the we're joined into the domain. Happy days, right? So now we installed that remote server administration kit update or administration tool update. Now we have to actually go into our programs and features. And I always do this by switching the control panel to small icons and then going programs and features. And now what we want to do is turn Windows features on or off. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to take a minute to search through its registry and discover what it has. The Windows registry is just a beast, isn't it? And I'll pause this until it's done because I know it takes it a minute. Okay, and so now we see here where we can turn Windows features on and off. And basically we want to come down here and we're going to see a section here since we installed that update called Remote Server Administration Tools. We're going to go ahead and click that. And you see it's a little square block, which means it didn't click everything underneath automatically for some crazy reason. I just go ahead and click all of these. It should, if you click the top one, click them all for you, but it doesn't. It'll just turn them off and on. Even if you double click it or anything, I shouldn't have clicked it because now I done messed it up. And on other stuff, that's typically the way it works, but for some reason with this particular thing, it doesn't work that way. And see, then there's things under these you have to click. And then there's some things under here that you have to go through and click. And then there's some things under that one that you're going to have to click. And yeah, whatever, just do your thing. Oh no, what did you do now? Okay, there we go. And now there's some things under here that we have to click. And there's some things under this one to click. And we'll click this one and this one. And we'll click this one. And now I think that's everything. If we go back up to the top, we should see a full check mark, and we do, so we can say OK. And now it's telling you it's going to take forever to do all this. So what I'll do is I'll pause it, and we'll be back when it's done and installing all these things. Okay, so we got done with its install. I already went ahead and clicked OK and then closed control panel to get back here. I just closed out everything I was in. I probably should have waited and showed you those steps. Sorry, but I think you should be able to figure that part out. So now if we go to control panel, just click our start button, go to control panel, and we look under administrative tools, we will see our tools here. And the main thing will be Active Directory, sites and services, which we may need. We don't really need that right now with one controller, but Active Directory users, computers, I guess that's really the main thing that we may need. And then I also go ahead and put the DNS under here as well. If I can get the mouse to work. Oh, you silly thing. Sometimes you have to hit control. What's up with the mouse? My mouse is going to crack. Let me pause this and fix the mouse. Okay, I had to cuss for a minute and then it started working right again. I don't know. So I'll go ahead and close this now. And just kind of show you, if you go to Active Directory users and computers, we'll have our users here. And I typically don't put new users in this. I leave this for the default users of the domain. And I'll typically go up here under my domain and create a new container. Or organizational unit. And we'll call this Dallas. Right, so you can create that. And we could create another one. New organizational unit, and call this one New York. And we could create one, as long as we're having fun, New organizational unit, and uh, we'll call this one Hong Kong. Okay, because we're a global company. Okay, Frugal is a global corporation. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna say I'm in Dallas because guns aren't legal anywhere else, right? You got to be in a place where they still have guns. I'd rather have the Ebola and still have my guns. Okay, so now we'll say new. By the way, folks, if you're listening to this video, I do have another channel called Frugal Prepper. I'm a gun crazy prepper dude, and this is the kind of stuff I do for my day job. So, anyway, I'm going to call it Tom Mulkey. Oh, not Toe. Oh, that's first name, Tom. There we go, Mulkey, and that's fine. My username is just going to be tmulkey, and it's at frugal.local. That's all good stuff there. We're going to say next. I'm going to have to give myself a password here. I'll do that. I'll make it different than the admin password. And we're going to say user must change password at next logon. I don't want to do that. I don't really want my password to expire either. Now, one thing that it does do here is it does by default set your administrator password to have an expiration date. I don't like that, especially in this test environment. So I'm going to go ahead. In a normal environment, I create a new administrator account in the domain, name something else, and then disable the administrator account. But I'm not going to do that for this testing. But I am going to make it so my password never expires. So if I go general account, yeah, there we go. Password never expires. That way I don't have to worry about that. Okay. So now I'm in Dallas. My name's Tom Mulkey. I didn't specify any profile or anything like that yet. What we'll go ahead and log in as Tom Mulkey first before we go into some of the other stuff. So one thing I want to do is I need to go to my local computer and do a manage. Okay, because I want my users to have full control over their own desktops. I'll just re-image them off of the backup if they blow it up. Some people might not like that. You can decide, but I always go to the local group of administrators and I will add domain admins or domain users. I'm sorry. So anybody that's a valid domain user can now have administrator privileges to the local workstation, and that will include the tmulkey that I'm getting ready to log in as. Now, see these tools right here? They won't be shortcuts once I log in as tmulkey because it's going to recreate that profile again, right? But that's fine. I can go copy them over because I'll have rights to that folder because I have full rights to everything on the workstation as an administrator. So I'll go ahead and log off. And then we'll just insert a Control-Alt-Delete. And now I'm going to say I want to switch the user, other user. And now I'm going to say frugal /tmulkey and my password. And I'm now logging in to the domain as that user that I just created. Again, it's setting up a new desktop for me, creating a new user.dat user registry file, the HKey local user. It's setting up all my little folders and all that kind of stuff. And so now I'm logged in as Tom Mulkey to the domain. That's all happy, good stuff, right? I want to go get those shortcuts back. I could go to control panel and we make them, but I'm just going to go C:. I'm going to go click on users. I'm going to go to administrator. Oh, see, it doesn't give me permission to that. Probably because it is a different domain user. But I had something's not right here, is it? I don't think it gave me full permission to everything. Let me see. Let me go manage. And if we go to local users, groups, administrators, domain admins, and domain users. Well, I'm just going to go ahead. It let me run that. Maybe it's just the folders. Because normally it would not let you change those groups. Let's see if it'll let me change them. Just curious. That'll tell me if I really have administrator rights or not. If I add and I say tmulkey, say okay. Yeah, let me add it. So I must have administrator privileges. I just for some reason can't see those folders. I don't know. I thought it would give me full rights to those folders, but maybe not. Something tells me it should have though. Anyway, we'll just go to control panel here. Maybe I should have rebooted. And go to small icons, then go to administrative tools, and we'll go ahead and grab. Oh, you know what it is I didn't make myself an administrator on the domain. So since those are associated with a different set, that's what it is. An administrator on the domain would have rights to see those. So let me log back out real quick and go back in here as administrator, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now I'll do insert, control alt delete, switch user, and other user, and this is going to be frugal administrator, and the password. Okay, now let me go back to Active Directory users and computers, and let me go to users. No, Dallas. I'm in Dallas. And let me go to properties. And now let me go to member of and add and put domain admins. Now I have full rights to see those other domain user profiles. So let me log off. Insert a control alt delete. And now we'll do my user, so switch user. And tmulkey. Once you put the domain name in front of a user, you really don't have to type it again. It should remember it. Windows is pretty good about that, but sometimes it loses its mind and forgets. Okay, so now let's see if I can see that folder just out of curiosity. I don't know, I'm just going to say give me permissions to see it. Okay, there we go. It let me in there that time. So now I'll go to desktop, and I want these 3 shortcuts. I think maybe since I already tried to hit it once with the wrong permissions, it's still kind of messed up. And so now I can go and open up Active Directory users and computers, and it should run and allow me to do things because I am a domain admin now. I'll minimize that, and then I'll show you on DNS. You want to connect to the following computer and change that, and then say AD1, which is our domain controller. And now you'll come down here, and this is the Samba DNS entries that you're looking at. So whatever it can't find here, then it would then go and point that out to that DNS forwarder that we set up in the Samba config file. But now we see we have frugal.local. We see here's the test PC host record. That's its current IP address. Here's AD1. And also you'll have like your domain stuff in here for domain controller, sites. You know, all that stuff is created in here and can be managed through this interface, which is pretty cool, I think. And you know, if we go to Active Directory sites and services, we can see we have for site name default and Oh, that's the NTDS settings. I clicked the wrong thing. Servers. Now we see here's our server and our domain, and we can see under NTDS that it's not actually replicating with any other servers right now. But when we set up our second one, we'll see them both there. So all those tools pretty much work. So now what we want to do is go ahead and set up a small file share on our domain controller, so that I can show you how that works from the Windows client before we have to go all the way out and make our actual member server that is our file server. So we'll make a quick share to show you how that works. Now what I'm going to do is download a little program called Putty, and this is basically an SSH client that will allow you to SSH into your server, get a command prompt, and do those commands right from the workstation rather than having to go and connect to the server another way or go in and actually sit at the server or whatever. So yeah, we just want to use our default settings for Explorer 10. We don't want to meet our browser. And we're going to go to Google. And come on, Googly. Really? Just take me to Google. Yeah. Internet Explorer. It took me back to MSN. Oh, there. Finally. Okay. I hate Internet Explorer, but I don't feel like putting Firefox on here at the moment. So now we're just going to do a search for Putty. And it's like this first link right here. It's like chartgreen.org UK. That's where I always go to get it. But I think there's some other places you can get it too. So what we want to do is click on download. Come down here, we'll see putty.exe. We're just going to get that. We're going to save it. We're going to view it. And then we're going to take it and we're going to right click and open the containing folder. And then we're going to take this and we're going to send it to the desktop. Well, really, I created a shortcut. I want to just put the exe out there because I might delete it out of downloads someday, right? So we'll just say move it here, and we'll take this one and put it in the trash can. And now we have Putty. So now we open this up, and we can go ahead and put in the IP address of our server or just the name 81, and we can say open. And now the very first time you go in, it's going to say, hey, this is the fingerprint on this server. It's not cached. You want to cache it? We'll say, yeah, we'll go ahead and cache it. And now we can say we want to log in as root. I'll put in root's password. And now I'm at the prompt for my server as root without having to do anything too special. Okay, I finally figured out how to change the color to green. Okay, so I'm at my root prompt, and we want to create a file share, and there's a couple things that we have to do in order to create that file share. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we want our file share to have full ACL capabilities. And I might go ahead and make a couple shares so we can do some home directories as well. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and do I'm going to go ahead and make the directories for these shares first. And I'm going to make a directory called data, or we'll call it group data. I'm doing a DOS command, group data, and I'm going to make dir mkdir / and then this is going to be users. Okay. And you know what? I think I might go ahead and make one called mkdir smb shares. So I'll know that I have Samba shares. And then let me move those two folders to SMB shares. New group data to SMB shares. Okay, I just wouldn't tab it. And then I'll go ahead and move users into that one too. Okay, now the weird thing on Samba, and I haven't figured this out, and if anyone else can figure it out, let me know, but I haven't been able to, is in order to get these to work right, I have to give them full like Linux permissions to every darn thing. So which is no big deal as long as your server is relatively secure. But it'd be kind of nice to not have to do this. But so I'm going to do cd slash smb users or smb shares, and then I'm going to do a change mod, which is how we change the permissions on the Linux file system. And one of these days, I will do some videos on exactly how permissions work in Linux, because it's quite different than you might be used to. And it's quite confusing, and it took me 2 books and a lot of Googling to finally get a decent grasp on how it works. So we're going to go to grp data. Actually, we don't want to put a slash there. We just want to change it in this folder. So grp data, and we're going to do 777. I think that comes first, doesn't it? Yeah, I think so. No, it comes second. Whoops. Which is like full unlimited permissions to all the users, groups, and root. No, that was right. Change mod 777. Let me make sure my folders are under here where they're supposed to be. Oh, users moved, but group data didn't move. Let me group data to SMB shares. Oh, I'm just gonna go ahead and make it again. Doing DOS commands again. Okay, so now ls, now it's there. Now let's do a change mod on it. Oh, 777 does go first. Boom, and now I'm going to do a change mod 777, and I'm going to do that on users. Okay, and so now that I've done that, we've got those set. So now what we need to do is add ACL capabilities to the file system, and we want to look at the mounted file system, which will be, this is all going to be in our FS tab. So we're going to do vi slash etsy slash fstab, and these are where all the settings are for your file systems to auto mount at boot up. Okay, so here we see all the different file systems, and one that we're interested in is just going to be the root one, and we see that it has defaults here, and we need to change that. So we'll press insert, and we'll come down here, and we're going to take defaults out, and then we're going to put in 2 commands. Alright, now what we want to do is add user. Oh, let me hit insert. It isn't. Oh, let me click on it. There we go. Okay. User underscore XATTR comma ACL. And this is going to allow us to store the attributes and access list stuff on the file system, on the ext4 file system. If you had this on another disk with another mount point, you would have to add those parameters. Now, there are 3 other parameters on a member server that you have to add to your Samba config, and we'll cover that in the member server thing. But for a domain controller, this you don't have to add those. So we'll go ahead and say write and quit. We hit escape :WQ for write and quit, and that'll save the FS tab file. And I think that's it there. And then we're going to go ahead and create our shares. And so what we want to do is vi slash usr slash samba, or no, slash local slash samba slash etsy slash smb.conf. Okay, so we see that there's 2 shares in here now, and we just have the net logon share and the sysvol share. What we want to do is change that. So we're going to hit our insert key to go into insert mode. And now we're going to add 2 more shares, and we're basically going to do it the same exact way that it's done here. We don't, since we're managing the permissions via Windows through the domain, we don't have to put a whole bunch of special stuff in here now in Samba 4 like we used to back in Samba 3. So now we're just going to say this is going to be group data is the name of the share, and we're going to put that in the little braces, and then we're going to tab over here and say the path on our actual disk is slash SMB shares slash grp data, and it's not going to be a read-only share. We're going to be able to write to it. Equals, and then we're going to create one called users. And if you had a small business, just doing this one single server would be perfectly acceptable. Put another disk in here and create your shares right on the one server. If you have a slightly larger environment, you want to kind of break those things up. and why not break them up and make it easier to manage, especially if you're virtualizing? Because you don't have to pay $1,000 for every copy of Windows, right? You can install as many Linux boxes as you want to at no cost. So path equals slash SMB shares slash users, and read only equals new. Okay, so now we'll just do escape :WQ to save that. And now in order to initialize those attributes on my file system, I really have to reboot. So I'm going to go ahead and do shutdown is now -R. And that'll go ahead and reboot this box. And of course we lost our connectivity to it because it's rebooting. I'll go ahead and bring the virtual session for this guy on over here, and we'll watch her reboot. I'll go ahead and pause this until it boots back up. Well, it's just going to take a second. That's what I love. Right there. That was rebooting my domain controller. That's how long it took to reboot my domain controller / file server. I have a Windows 2003 domain controller today, my primary one. If I reboot that sucker, it's almost a 25-minute process by the time it shuts down all of its services and bloatware and comes back up and finds itself and searches for the network settings and prepares the network. If I need to reboot something in this world, I'm back up. This is where, when you use Linux in the back end, it's not just as good, it's better. It does more, and it's more efficient, and it does things nicer. This is where you can have a better, more stable, robust, and reliable network by using something that has no cost and that is free. And by free, we're not always talking about cost. We're talking about I can change it if I want to. I can do whatever I want to with it. The source code is available. It's free, and as in not closed and full of bugs that nobody's found yet, right? So anyway, I diverge or diverse or whatever we call it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and move that out of the way now, and we'll close this putty session down. And really, I don't need to go back in there. Those shares are going to be there now. So now if I just go ahead and pop this guy open, I'm going to pop open Explorer, do / /AD1, and I see here's my user share, here's my group data share. Now I can right click on this group data share and hit properties, and I can say security, and I'm going to want to change some permissions here, right? Because it's not exactly got everything I want. So we'll hit advanced and change, and I want to go in here and I want to make it so that these things are gone. So I'm not gonna include any of these inheritable permissions, right? And I'm going to add domain admins first, and they're gonna have full control. And then I'm going to add domain users, and we're just going to give them full control as well. Okay, and now I'm going to remove all these other crazy things. Actually, I think you leave the creator owner thing, but I don't need an everyone in here. Really, I don't even need that stuff. Let's just get rid of that. So now domain admins and domain users have that. I always click this just out of habit, but if there's other folders, it'll reassign those permissions even though it's empty right now. We don't have to do that. And it says it's going to replace explicitly defined permissions, and we're going to say, yep, we are good with that, right? That's exactly what we want. And so now that one's set. And now what I'm going to do is go ahead and edit this one. And oh wait, that's group data. Okay, say okay. Duh. I want to edit this one, this share, and we go to security, and we're going to say advanced, and we're going to say change, and then we're going to add domain admins, and say okay, and full control, and then we're going to add domain users, say okay, and full control. Now, in this one, I'm going to remove the inheritables. I'm going to take the other stuff out. Oh, let me go back to change. I still have other stuff to take out. Okay. Now, I'm going to click replace because this is empty. If I had user folders out here, I wouldn't click replace because it would have assigned rights for those users. And you don't want to spend an entire day going through all your user folders reassigning the rights back. Okay. But since it's empty, I can do that for right now. And that's just going to give everybody at the root domain users and domain admins privileges. So they'll be able to see folder names, but once it assigns to specific user folders, unless I go give them permission, by default only the user themselves has that permission. Okay, and so now I've created that. So I want to do a couple other things here that you would do in a typical domain just to kind of show you how it works. And it really works the same way it works configuring it in Windows, but this is how I do it. I know some people use like a different extension on their login scripts. I always use batch files because I started doing that back in 1992 with Novell Netware 2 point something. Anyway, we'll go ahead and say, okay, these are set up and good to go. So I want to do a couple things. First, I want to go into my net logon share, and I want to create a batch file. And what I like to do is even if it's the same, see, like back in the Novell Netware days, we used to have a login script, and we had a master login script and a user login script, and we don't have that anymore. So a lot of times people create like a master login script that then goes out and calls another batch file based on the username and all that. I just make copies, and then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make one. We'll say it's a new, and we're going to say text document for right now. And what I want to do is show all my file extensions. So I'll do show extensions, and then I'm going to say where it says hide extensions for known file types, we'll uncheck that. And now I'm going to rename this, and it's going to be tmulkey.bat. I'm going to say yes. Okay, now I want this file to do something. So typically, what I would do first is I would do net, what's the command? Net time. Hang on, let me pop up in a DOS prompt. Maybe. Hang on a second. Let me find the option / sync is on there. Hang on a second. I'll figure out what it is. Okay, so I've gone ahead. I've done that. Even though everything syncs with NTP, a lot of times I turn NTP off on workstations, and I want my time to sync to my domain controller. And so that way I can set the time on the domain controller or controllers, or have them sync to NTP, and that's getting forced down so that everything's in sync with the time on the domain controllers. So I usually put this command here. I finally figured it out. It's net time, and then the // and the server name you want to sync it to, and then a / set to set your time, and then a /y so it doesn't ask you if you're sure, and it'll set that time. So we're going to put that command in our batch file for our login script. Net time // 81, and we're going to do /set and /y. Is that right? Yep, that's it. Okay. So now I want to go ahead and map my group data drive. So I'm going to do net use and pick a drive letter. I'm going to say J:, and we're going to say it's going to be on // 81 /grp data is the name of the share, and that's great. Now the problem is what if something got happened and J was already in use by something else? It might stop and hang up and ask me a question. So what I always like to do is a net use J:, or is it /d/y, I believe. Well, let me see. It's weird because I don't type these commands that very often once they're in the script. Net use J:, /d/y. Okay. Net use J:, // 81 /grp data. Okay, and then that deletes it. Okay. So I had it right. Okay. You don't have to type caps here. You can. I don't think it matters on these types of commands. Okay, and so that's going to map that drive. Now I don't have to map the user's drive here. That's going to happen automatically when we set the user share in Active Directory users and computers. So we'll go ahead and close this, and we'll save it, and we have our first login script for our first user. So now I'm going to go ahead and open up Active Directory users and computers, and I go to users, or I'm under Dallas, okay, and now I say okay, I want to go properties on this user, and now I click on that user's profile tab. So his login script right here, I'm not worried about profile. That's if you wanted to do a roving profile. That's beyond the scope of this document, although you can do it with these domain controllers. I'm going to put in a login script here, and that login script is going to be tmolkey.bat. Okay, now I'm going to say I want to map a drive for my home folder. So I'm going to put K as the user's drive, so it's going to be under K, and I'm going to say it's going to map to // 81 /users. Now if we hit apply, the home folder was set to the following shared folder. The shared folder already exists because the folder is at the root of the file share. You must verify the permissions. Oh, duh. So I have to say tmolkey. There we go. And now it'll create that folder for us under users. Hit apply, say OK. And now if we go and look at our share again, under // 81, and we go to users, and we'll see tmolkey there, and if I hit properties, I will see that domain admins got full rights, and it did let the domain users inherit up too. So yeah, maybe I probably would take domain users out of the root because I wouldn't want that to inherit up to all my other directories. But I'm not going to worry about it right now. So domain admins inherited up, and then it assigned the rights for tmolkey right there. So that's all happy days. So now if I log out of this workstation and I log back in, it should run my login script, set my time, delete any J drive that exists, map a new J drive, and also map my home folder, my users folder. to K. Let's see what happens. I've had times when it won't map K the very first time and you have to do it a second time. Sometimes it works the first time though. So I'll put in my password. Click this thingy. Come out here, go to computer. Yep, it did it the first time. So here's my J drive, here's my K drive. And so life is good, right? I now have my own personal drive and a group data shared drive that I can now go and make folders in until my heart's content. You know, I can put quarterly reports 2014, right? I can start making any kind of data under there that I want to make. Okay, so that's how it works from a workstation on managing the domain controller, using a domain controller, setting up some simple shares. So that gets you through, like if you just have a small business, this is probably how you do it. You probably would set up some rated drives in your Linux server and go ahead and set up a domain controller and some shares. You may even want to put your share mount point onto a separate set of rated drives. If you want to understand how to do rated drives, that's going to be outside the scope of this. But I'm doing a parallel series on how to set up a enterprise class backup solution. And so look at that playlist, and in the second video of that playlist, we cover setting up how to set up rated drives. And we're doing it just that exact scenario: one run RAID set for the main OS and another RAID set where we're putting data. That would be, if you're using a guest, if it's a guest machine on a hypervisor, then that doesn't really apply to a production environment. You wouldn't do it RAID within the guest. However, if you're actually building a Linux machine that's going to be sitting there and being a small company server, that's how you would do this. So I hope that helps for some Windows guys out there that want a low-cost domain controller solution. And so in our next video, we're going to go ahead and build our member server. I'm going to do that before I build the other domain controller because I think that's kind of a neat thing. And then we'll build a second domain controller and install that into the domain, have them sync with each other. So that's it. Everybody. Also, if you want more discussion and to chat with some other people and experts and stuff, be sure to check out my Facebook group, Windows for the Linux Guy, and send us a join request and we'll get you added. But that's a great place to chat with a lot of other Linuxy type geeks and Windowsy type users. There's both out there, and so that's a great place to have some discussion about some of this stuff as well.